We've been looking for it high and low every day now for more than a year, probably, in almost every piece of data that we get. Could we finally have found the bottom in the housing market? Senior economics reporter Steve Leisman is on the home front with a possible discovery of a basement, and we have advised picking bottoms is it's just not advisable. It's dangerous.
If it's a basement, there's a lot of water in it. But here's the deal, Joe. Some very bearish economists have been looking at the data and saying this against their wishes. They have to entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, we've seen the worst days of the housing market and that a bottom could be forming. Take a look at some of the data that's come out. Pending home sales, flat. Builder sentiment, flat. Existing home sales, flat. And housing starts. All of these are like double-digit declines they've had in the past several months. Look at this quote from Ian Shepardson, a terrific economist who I followed down on this story. He was very early on. He says, "We can't quite believe we've written something about housing that isn't all grim. But we have to go where the data take us, and we are very mindful of the old maxim that the darkest hour is just before the dawn." That's Ian Shepardson from High Frequency Economics. Here's what he's looking at. Existing home sales have fallen hard from 7.2 million units to around 5 million units annually. That's a 3-year look. We'll zoom in now on a 1 year. The worst level, 4.9 million units. That was last month of January. You can see that flatness right there. It ticked back up to 5 in February, and you can see the worst days of decline have stopped, at least for now. Same story in housing starts, which were up there, 1.2, 1.4 now. They've sort of ticked along 3 months now, a kind of level right there. Now, there is a strong case against a bottom. Foreclosures are still surging. Unemployment is rising. That could mean more foreclosures, more distressed inventory out there. And even if it is a bottom, the bears say, don't expect any uptick anytime soon. Now, housing has fallen so far and so hard that most economists are very reluctant to stick their necks out. Not me, though, particularly when there have been other and several false calls here. But home building stocks, which try to predict the future, they're up almost 15% this week, either falling for another head fake or sensing a real bottom forming. And that's just the debate that's out there right now. Been enough data. There is some natural amount of home sales and housing starts we have in this country. Whether or not we've gotten there, I don't know.
All right, let's have that debate.
Okay.
We're going to stay on the home front, talk about whether or not we are seeing a bottom for the housing market at least. Matt Garrison was the #1 real estate agent for Coldwell Banker in 2006. He works out of the Chicago area. David Kelly, chief market strategist at JP Morgan Funds. And Doug DeShiel is our guest host. He is CEO of First Principles Capital Management. Guys, good to see all of you. Let me start with you, Matt. Do you believe what Steve's been saying?
You know, in terms of a bottom, it may not be the end, but I feel that it's at least the beginning of the end. I was on an interview back in January when the 490 number came out, and or the 489. It was a little lower than expectations. And I told them, hey, my cell phone's been ringing a lot. The buyers that we talk to are looking 2, 3 months, 4 months out to make a purchase. So I'm really dealing with different data points. I'm dealing with a little bit more of a futures market instead of looking back 30 days.
Right, but your sense is heading into the spring that it's going to be perhaps stronger than some originally thought?
I think we're going to see a lot of the buyers that sat out the third and fourth quarter, and you know, obviously the spring buyers, and I think we're going to see a late spring market into the summer as more of these buyers jump in.
David, how about you?
Well, I think that there are two chapters to the housing story. On housing starts and on housing sales, I think we are close to the bottom. What Steve was talking about in terms of those statistics, I think is correct. But not on prices. When we have seen regional housing bubbles in the past, they've taken years for prices actually to hit a bottom. So I think we'll see prices drift down. We've still got a lot of inventory in the market. We've got about 50% more inventory in the market today than we did 3 years ago. We've got to work that down. I think prices will continue to drift down for a while. But on starts and on sales, I think we are close to a bottom.
Well, I guess that's the glass half full. And Doug, I mean, look at Case-Shiller yesterday. I mean, there's no reason to suggest that these prices aren't going to continue to fall, right?
Well, I mean,
which has a bunch of negative ramifications by itself.
I look at it from the mortgage market perspective, because when you look at housing affordability, it's a function of two things: price and mortgage availability and mortgage affordability, okay? You look at the mortgage availability and affordability. You compare it, and what happened, the pendulum has completely swung. 5 years ago, over the past 5 years, you basically accelerated home ownership by having lax and easy mortgage availability. So you accelerated all these buyers that would have taken 5 years to get into a home, and you got them into a home 5 years too soon.
Right.
Now in the mortgage market, you're pushing away parties that could have ordinarily been able to afford and get into a home today, and you're forcing them to be deferred to buy those homes because mortgage rates are high, credit standards are tough and tight, and banks aren't willing to to lend. So until you have that, absent that, with that mortgage market, there's only one thing that can absorb and make houses affordable: price declines.
I think, Carl, the issue here, what David Kelly brought up, is price. When, oversupply and under demand are going to meet, it's going to be through price. And the trouble that falling prices presents is that it keeps people out of the market who would otherwise be in the market. And I don't care if our real estate broker makes any money or sells any homes. I don't care if the guy's short in the MBS. What I care about is getting back to the natural level of housing sales and starts in this country, and I don't think we get there until we can start to stop the price from falling. We did 8.6 million existing home sales and new home sales. Now we're down to about 6. So there's 2.6 million gap in there. Somewhere in there, probably a million higher would be the natural level of home sales and housing starts, housing sales in this country.
Matt, you say the asks